Hey everyone, you asked me to make a tutorial on how to combine live action footage with CGI render shot inside the Unreal Engine and After Effects. In this tutorial, we'll go step by step so we can learn how to create and render a photorealistic environment and then combine it with a green screen footage that has camera movement. This is exactly what you've been waiting for. Let's go take a look. Okay, before I dive into the tutorial, I gotta say the footage I picked for this tutorial is a shot from a commercial video I made last month. Let me show you a few shots from that video. All the 3D environments in this video were created in Unreal Engine and the compositing process was done in After Effects. It's interesting to note that the entire post-production process for this video was done exactly the way I'm going to teach you today. No need to explain, you already know the first thing to do with a camera movement shot is 3D camera tracking. After tracking the camera, we need to create a simple 3D geometry and then import it into Unreal Engine. What helps us avoid getting lost inside Unreal Engine is this simple 3D geometry that we need to create here. Actually, creating a simple 3D geometry in After Effects will have two important uses. First, with this 3D geometry, you will be able to determine the exact size of your scene and your character inside the Unreal Engine. And the second use is that you can identify the position of the footage elements when importing 3D meshes into the scene. Okay, let's start from the scratch. The first thing I do is go to the Layer menu, then Compose, click on Mobile Attributes, and OK. As you know, moving objects in the shot, like the actors, will decrease the camera tracking accuracy. Also, these three branches too. So I double click on the comp, select the pen tool, and create a mask around these moving objects. I set the mask to none. I click on the stopwatch to add keyframe and make sure during the entire video all moving objects, including the actors and the green screen, stay within the mask area. I do the same thing with the three branches as well because these interwoven branches will definitely cause errors in the tracking process. Let's change the mask to none for now, add a keyframe, then adjust the mask during the time. I also create the mask for the branches on this side of the footage, then set the mask to none for now. Again, I add a keyframe and follow the branches by the mask. I set all of these together and set them to subtract. I add a curve from the effect window to the footage to increase the camera tracking accuracy by boosting the contrast. Let's go back to the main cam and click on the track camera. When the analyze process is finished, I select these track points, right-click, set ground plane and origin, then right-click again, create solid and camera. Let me increase the scale of the solid. As you can see, I've increased the scale of the solid to 1400, but it still looks small. This means our tracked scene is very big and I need to scale it down. But how can I scale down the entire scene? For this, I need a tool. As you can see here, I have a free script called Normalize Track. I've put the download link for this free script in the description. It's an extremely useful script in the camera tracking process. Let's go ahead. I rename the solid to floor and select that. Then click on this icon. Now our scene has been scaled down by more than 10 times. I apply grid effect to the solid to check if the camera tracking has been done correctly. I increase the border to make it more visible and make the solid bigger. As you can see, the grid is stuck to the ground and the tracking has been done correctly. Let's check the average error. It's a good number and generally a value below 0.5 means the tracking is acceptable. Okay, the tracking is done and the camera has been created. So I no longer need the masks I created or the contrast I applied to the footage. I go into the footage count, disable all these masks like this, and remove the curve I applied. I go back to the main cam. Okay, to complete the 3D geometry, we need to create a 3D solid that is exactly the size of the actor and positioned where the jump starts. To do that, let's turn off this floor solid for now. I select 3D camera tracker. Then select this tracking point, which is near the actor's foot. Right click and create a solid. I select the solid and click on this plus icon. I scale up the solid. Let's turn on the floor. I go to the left view and move the solid up that is placed exactly on the floor surface. Let's go back to the active camera view. Now I need to resize this solid to match the size of the actor. I push it back along the z-axis so that it's positioned exactly next to the actor's foot. I select the anchor point and place the anchor point of the solid just below it. I did this so that when we change the scale of the solid, it expands from the point where it's on the floor and doesn't go below it. Okay, scale up the solid. I move it to the right along the x-axis so that it's positioned exactly where the actor is. Let's turn off the solid for now. And now we need another solid, exactly where the actor lands after jumping to the ground. I select camera tracker, and then select this tracking point, which is near the foot. Right click, click null this time. I select the null, click on the plus icon. Let's turn on that solid we created before. I duplicate the solid with Ctrl D and select the null, press P to position. Then I copy the position of the null and paste it to the solid. And now I can delete the track null. Let's switch to custom view. This is a simple 3D geometry we created. You can see the camera path, also the ground plane. This solid is in the same place where the actor starts jumping, and this one is exactly where the actor lands. Between these two solids is where the fence which the actor jumps over should be placed. To mark the location of the fence in the geometry, I select this solid and duplicate it by pressing Ctrl D, and I move it forward along the z-axis. I resize the solid to match the size of the fence. I think this size is good. To visualize better, I change the color of the solids, layer, solid settings, and change the color. I change the color of this one too. Okay, I back to the active camera view. I consider this red solid as the fence geometry. It's too tall, I make it shorter. I think this size is good now. Let's turn on all solids we created. And now we don't need the footage, we just need this simple 3D geometry and we'll transfer it to Unreal Engine. Let's change the name of this solid to ground or road. Delete the grid, we don't need that. I give this a name. And this one should be the size of the fence, and also this one. Now I can export the scene in File menu, Export, Maxon Cinema 4D Exporter. Okay, I create a folder, give it a name, and save it. I'm launching Cinema 4D. Before importing the scene, I gotta tell you something. You don't need to know how to work with Cinema 4D. All you need to do is import the scene, save it, and close Cinema 4D. That's it. File menu, open project, I select my scene, and open. After the scene is imported into Cinema 4D, I don't touch anything. The only thing I do is go to the File menu and click on the Save Project for Cineware. I create a folder like this, give my scene a name, and save it. Just this, I close Cinema 4D, we don't need to do anything else with it. I open the Unreal Engine. Before starting work in Unreal Engine, I need to explain that all the 3D models, plans, and anything I use to create the landscape are all free. And we can download everything for free using the Fab plugin by clicking on this icon. Also, the download link for all these assets from the fab.com has been provided in the description. All assets, such as these trees, bushes, flowers, grass, these props, wooden planks, fences, background mountains, even this house, all are free to download. Okay, let's go ahead. Before anything, I go into the project settings and search for ray trace. Make sure all the settings related to ray tracing are checked. Use hardware ray tracing when available. Ray traced shadows support hardware ray tracing. Okay? Before importing the scene, I create the light. This icon, then lights. But what type of light should I add to the scene? Let's look at the raw footage. As you can see, there is no direct sunlight in the scene. It was filmed on a cloudy day, so we need a HDRI image for lighting the scene. To add HDRI image to the scene, you have two options, HDRI backdrop or skylight. If you want to render the scene using Lumen and export it with the same Lumen method, you can use the HDRI backdrop. But since in this course, we intend to render and export using path tracing, a skylight is a better option. So I add a skylight to the scene. Now I need a HDRI image and add it to the skylight. I have a HDRI folder here. To download the HDRI image, I go to the Polyheaven website and download the HDRI image that matches my raw footage. Access HDRIs inside the skies. And I think this one should be good, and I download it. After the download is complete, I drag and drop the HDRI image into Unreal Engine. I select the skylight in the details panel and change source type from SLS captured scene to the SLS specified cube map. Now I can drag and drop my HDRI image into the cube map, just like this. Now it's time to create landscape. To do that, from here I switch to landscape mode. I increase the section size to 256 and click create. Let's go back to selection mode. And now I have a landscape that is lit with a skylight. But by default, you can see the HDRI image in the level. Even if I switch from lit to path tracing like this, the HDRI image still won't be visible. What can I do? I want to see the HDRI image in the level. You can solve this issue with a console command. Inside the CM device type, r.pathtracing.visibleLight, this one, space, 2, enter, and boom. The HDRI image has appeared in the level. The resolution is very low, so I increase the cube map resolution to 1024. And now I have a high quality HDRI image in the scene. I'm back to the lit mode. It's time to import my 3D camera tracked scene into my level. To do that, I go to this icon, Datasmith, File Import. Then I select the scene and open. Make sure geometry, materials and textures, cameras and animations are checked, then click on Import. Okay, the geometry and the camera we created in After Effects have been imported into Unreal Engine. To move the entire scene in the level, I need to select this guy, and then I can move the entire scene. This green solid should be exactly level with the landscape. When I imported the tracked scene, Unreal Engine automatically created a folder for it. I enter the folder, the geometries or solids are placed inside this folder, and the timeline is inside the animation folder. I click on the animation folder and then click on the timeline. And now you can see the timeline with all camera path keyframes. If I select the camera, you'll see that the camera's path is exactly the same as camera's path in After Effects. And if I click on this camera icon, it will switch from perspective view to camera view. Let's go back to the perspective view by disabling this icon. The last and most important thing is to check the scene's size. In After Effects, when we created this geometry, we defined that this pink solid represents the size of our character. But is the size of a human exactly the same as the pink solid in Unreal Engine as well? To check this, I right-click inside the content folder, then select Add Feature or Content Pack, select Third Person, then Add to Project. I go into the character folder, search for the character, scroll down and add this guy to the scene. Now you can see that the human size inside Unreal Engine is this size, this character But the size of a human in my geometry is this size, this green solid. This means my scene is still too big and needs to be scaled down. So I select the entire scene, and in the details panel, I make sure the uniform scale is locked. Then I scale down the scene until the size of my solid matches the character size in Unreal Engine exactly. It's still big, I'll scale it down even more. Just like this. Now the size of my geometry is perfect. Let's turn off this SKM coin for now. For adjusting the sum settings in the level, I click on this icon, Visual Effects, Post-Process Volume, and add it to the level. I select the Post-Process Volume, go to the Details panel and type Infinite, then I make sure Infinite Extent is checked. In the Exposure section, I set the exposure to Manual, and Apply Physical Camera must be unchecked. I scroll down. I set the temperature the same of my live action footage. I set it to 7500 because my footage was shot in 7500 color temperature. In the path selection section of max bars, I reduced to 16. Sample I reduced to 500 for the faster preview. Reference depth of field checked. Denoiser checked for the preview, but the final render I will disable that. Okay. To create the environment, we need a reference. Here I have two reference photos. You can see foreground fences, background mountains, grass, house, as well as these fences and the rest. I start with sculpting the landscape, so I switch from selection mode to landscape mode. The sculpt tool is active, I increase the brush size and start sculpting the landscape. If you hold shift, you can sculpt in the opposite direction, meaning you can sculpt inward. By activating the smooth tool, I smooth out the sharp edges of the sculpt. Let's back to the selection mode. For the background mountains, here I have this pack downloaded from the Fab plugin. It's free to download that. Go to the Fab plugin and search this. In this pack, there are high quality background mountains in 4 seasons. Just add it to the project or you can download it from the link in the description. Okay, I click on that and go into the meshes folder. And I select the summer folder. Let's filter by a static mesh. To better visualize where the mountains should be placed in the landscape, I need 2 viewports at the same time. On the left from the camera's angle and on the right from the perspective view. To do that, I click on this icon, Layouts, and select 2 panes. Now I have 2 viewports. The one on the right is the perspective view. For the left one, I set it to the 3D camera view. Okay, let's add the BG mountains into the level. I select this guy and drag it into the level. I adjust its position and increase its scale. Don't worry about the ununiform scalar texture stretching because these background mountains will be covered by the trees. Okay, scale up again. Rotate. I bring another one into the level and again, position, rotation, scale to find base look for the scene. Maybe this one should be good. I adjust the position, scale, rotation. Also this guy, and again repeat the same process. You need to adjust the size, angle, and position of these mountains until you reach the desired look for your scene. As you can see, I can see the position of the mountains from both the perspective view and the camera view at the same time. I hold Alt to duplicate this one and change the position and rotation and scale. Let's back to the only one viewport. We click on this icon. Now we have already background mountains in the level. Before continuing, it's better to organize the outliner. So I select all of these mountains, click on this icon to create a folder and give it a name. I also create a folder for this skylight and name it lighting. Let's put all the contents related to the rocket scene into the one folder and name the folder camera data. Okay, our outliner is organized. Now I want to add a house to my level. I have a house here, you can download that for free in the description. All materials of this house downloaded for free from the Fab plugin. For example, of this stone material, it's easy to use. Open the Fab plugin, search Quixel, go to the publishers, click on Quixel, and inside the material, search stone. Select this, then add to the project. It will automatically download and be imported into your project right away, like this. Then you can drag and drop it to the mesh. Let's back to the two viewports view. I set the left one to the camera view. I move the house to find a good position for it. You can easily fill this empty space that was created by the sculpting. To do this, I switch to landscape mode and select the sculpt tool. I decrease the brush size and fill in this empty space. Let's back to selection mode. Switch to perspective view. Let's add some props into the level. To do that, I enter the Fab folder. Let's filter by static mesh. I'll scroll down. I think this wooden chair should be good. I bring it into the level, adjust the rotation, hold Alt to duplicate and rotate again. I bring this cardboard into the level as well and adjust the position, hold Alt to duplicate and again adjust the position and rotation. Also this wooden stool and this wooden ladder. There is some empty space here, so I switch to landscape mode and fill the empty space like this. Let's go back to selection mode. The ladder has sunk into the landscape because of the sculpting, so I bring it up. There are some trash bags here. I add it into the level and adjust the position. There is another one too, just like this, and another one as well. I add this plastic container to the level, then adjust the position and rotation. I switch to landscape mode and again fill the empty space. Just like this. Let's back to selection mode. I also add this firewood to the level, adjust the position or rotation. I take a few copies of it and adjust the position or rotation again. In the outliner, I select all of these firewoods and hold Alt to duplicate all of them at the same time. I change the rotation, duplicate them a few more times, and randomly give some of them rotation to create variation. Let me move up this plastic container. I have a wooden star here, so bring it into the level, adjust the position and scale up. Again, this empty space, I switch to landscape mode and fill that, just like this. I switch back to selection mode and organize the outliner again. I select these assets, create a folder, and name it props. I put these two chairs in the props folder as well. This should also go into the props folder. You can see the background mounted folder, lighting folder, this one, props folder, and so on. I create a folder named house for this cabin as well. Very nice. Let's turn off the camera data folder for now. And now it's time to start create fence. We need the fence around the house, bring it into the level. We'll have some empty space here, so I switch to landscape mode and start filling the empty space using the sculpt tool, like this. I switch back to selection mode again. I adjust the position of the fence. I hold Alt to duplicate, duplicate again, then select all and duplicate. I give it rotation just a little. I go back to landscape mode and fill the empty space. As I said before, you can smooth sharp angles using the smooth tool. Let's go back to selection mode. Duplicate this fence, adjust the position and rotation just like this. Again, this empty space, I don't need to explain, you know what to do. Okay, let's switch to two viewports again. I have a bench here, I bring it into the level. Let me change the left view from perspective to camera view. I move the bench a little to the right. I lift up, I hold Alt to duplicate and rotate it. I hold Alt to duplicate again and give it the rotation. I set all of these fences and send them to the props folder. Also these benches. Alright, the landscape we created needs a material. To do this, I go into the path folder and filter by the material instance. I select this one that downloaded with the Fab plugin, should be good. Okay, I select the landscape and scroll down. I drag and drop the material we selected into the landscape material section. Don't worry about the tiling and repeating pattern because the landscape will be covered with grass. The only thing we need to check is the texture size, which seems a bit big. To make it smaller, I double click on the material and then in the tiling section, I increase the tiling amount a bit. I think the size is good. Now I scroll down in the details panel and enable nanite, then with data to make your landscape nanite. That's it. Okay, let's turn on the camera data folder. If you remember, this red solid in my geometry was a guide for the position and size of the foreground fence. Okay, to create the foreground fence, I go into the Fab folder. Let's filter by the static mesh. I think this one is good. I bring it to the scene, adjust the position, I scale it down to match the size of this red solid. And also the position of our fence should be the same as this red solid. I hold Alt to duplicate and rotate it 180 degrees and adjust its position. Now we can turn off this reference red solid or maybe camera data folder. I bring this wood plank into the level and adjust the position and rotation. And this is how I continue the process of completing the fence. I also import this wood plank into the level and adjust the position and rotation. And also this one. I select all three, hold Alt and make a copy of all three. I rotate it 180 degrees and also rotate it a bit on y-axis. I add this one, then adjust the position, scale it up. I hold Alt to duplicate, rotate, hold Alt to duplicate again and rotate. I bring this one into the level and adjust the position and rotation. And this one too. Same process, adjust the position and rotation. And maybe this one. Okay, let's add this old wooden plank. I place it here. Then scale it up just a little. Also this one. And this big guy. I hold Alt to duplicate and rotate 90 degrees in x-axis. For the top of the fence, I think this one is good. I move it up and hold Alt to duplicate. I give it a rotation. Then duplicate again, duplicate and rotation. It's very easy, just duplicate and rotation, just like this. Okay. I import this as the fence rails into the level. I scale it down and duplicate it a few times to complete the fence rails. To create variation, I rotate some of them. I select all of these guys and duplicate to complete the right side of the fence. I rotate some of them again to create variation. Let's bring this guy to the level. I adjust the position and rotation as usual, like this. Now let's create fences around the benches. To that, this time I add this fence to the level, scale it down, duplicate, and give it rotation. I add this one also, scale it down. I don't think I need to explain anymore. All you have to do is duplicate, rotate, and adjust the position. That's very easy, just like this. Okay, the fences around the benches are done. Let me rotate this a bit so the fences look a little more irregular, old, and worn out. Alright, now it's time for the fun parts of this tutorial, adding the plants and trees to the level. For this, I'm using the European Horn Pin Pack. It's also free and the download link is provided in the description. I double click on that and go to the geometry folder, pivot painter, and you can see these trees and bushes. Look at the reference image, there is a tree in the foreground. Okay, let's add this one to the level. I changed its position so it's placed next to the foreground fences. I click on this icon to activate two viewports. I bring this tree to the level. I think it's a good spot to place it here. I also bring this small tree into the level. Let's add other tree beside the house. This one is good. I adjust the position and scale it down. Let's add another tree. To add background trees, I need to switch to the foliage mode and use the paint tool to do this. So let's see what tree mesh we've got here. Filter by the static mesh. Here I have some pine trees. Let's switch to the foliage mode. I selected all of trees and drag and drop to the foliage window. Before the paint trees on the landscape, I double click on the tree mesh. I scroll down and make sure this icon, preserve area, is checked. Do it for all your trees and plants you want to use in the foliage mode. Okay, let's go ahead. If I select all of these and start to paint somewhere like this, as you can see, the trees are being painted on the house. We don't want something like this. So I hold Shift and Paint to delete everything, and then uncheck the static meshes in the foliage window. This way, we tell the paint tool to only paint on the landscape, not on the static meshes. Okay, let's decrease the density. I set to 24. Radius or distance between each tree should be 500. Minimum scale 0.7 and maximum 1.2. Minimum Z offset I set to -4. And finally, make sure align to normal is unchecked. Let's decrease maximum scale to 0.9 and minimum scale 0.6. This tree, I don't like that, so uncheck that. I check only these two trees and start to paint. That's very cool. And let's continue painting the trees. I want to paint trees on the background mountains, but I can't because we need active static meshes in the foliage window. So in the foliage window, I check the static meshes. Let's increase the maximum ground slope angle to about 100, and let's start to paint on the mountain. I back to the two viewports and adjust this tree's position, like this. Let's back to the foliage mode, and continue paint trees on the mountain. I back to the selection mode. I think this snowy background mountain needs some adjusting. Very nice. Let's check the level in the path tracing mode. Everything looks fine. Let's see in the camera view also. Now I want to add background fog into the level. I go to the visual effects and select exponential height fog. Keep in your mind the path tracing only support volumetric fog. I select the exponential height fog and scroll down and check the volumetric fog. And now we can see the fog in the level. I decrease extinction scale just a little. I back to the perspective view and switch back to the lit mode. just like this. Now I want to cover the landscape by the grass. To do that, I go to the fab folder, mega scans, plant folder. Let's filter by the static mesh. I have some plants here downloaded from fab, switch to the foliage mode. I select these grass columns, drag and drop them into the foliage window. Make sure only grass is checked, so uncheck trees. I select these grass columns, increase the paint density to about 0.9. I'm gonna uncheck the static meshes. Because I want only the landscape to be covered with grass, I decrease the brush size and I start to paint. As you can see, the paint density is low, so I hold Shift and Paint to delete everything. Scroll down and increase the paint density to 500. Minimum scale 0.7, maximum scale 1.3. And I start to paint. Now landscape fully covered by the grass. Okay, continue painting the grass on the landscape, just like this. I need the console command for the foliage painting. Just write foliage.force LOD and set it to 0, then enter. Okay, let's continue painting the grass on the landscape. I want to paint some flowers too. I go into the fab folder, let's filter by the static mesh, and I select all of these bushy stand for flowers, drag and drop into the foliage window, uncheck grass and only select these flowers, scroll down. Minimum scale I set to 0.58 and maximum to 0.63. Density to 20 or maybe 10. Let's decrease min scale to 0.3 and max to 0.47. Let's start to paint. I need also some bushes in my level. I go into European Hermit folder. I select these bushes, also these two, and drag and drop them into the foliage window. Make sure only the bushes are checked. Set density to 20. Radius to 15. Minimum scale 0.6 and max to 1.3. Let's increase the min value to about 0.8 and max value to about 1.2. Let's change the density to 10 and paint density to 0.7. And let's change max value to 1 and radius to 100. Start to paint. I'll hold Shift to delete this one and paint again. I need some bushes around these fence. This time I select these bushes, bring them into the foliage window. I select and check only these 3 plants. Set density to 20, radius to 30. Min scale value to 0.67, max value I leave it to 1. Maybe decrease density to 50 and radius to 15. Okay, start to paint around this fence. For the bushes and plants around the house, I go to the foliage mode. Then I select and check all of these bushes and paint around the house. And maybe near these trees. Okay, I switch to the pasteurizing. Now I select and check all of plants in the foliage window. Make sure all are checked, like this. Let's back to the lit mode. And now I hold Shift and Paint to delete everything. With this way I can create a road in my level. I want to add soil ground on this narrow road. For this I click on the fab folder. Filter by static mesh. This volcanic ground should be good. I bring it into the level. I move it down so it becomes level with the landscape. Duplicate. Scale up this one. Rotate the Z-axis. Adjust the position, duplicate again. Select this one and duplicate. I rotate it on the Z-axis. I select these two, duplicate. And now select them all together, hold Alt and duplicate them. Okay, let's add this rock to the level. I bring it down lower. I hold Alt and make a copy of it and bring it here so it's placed in the foreground. Now it's time to organize the outliner again. I select these meshes and create a folder called Fence. I select these as well and send them to the Fence folder. I select these trees and create a folder called Plants. I put these two rocks in the Plants folder as well. These wooden plants should go into the Fence folder. For this volcanic ground, I create a folder and name it Ground. All of these are for the Fence folder. Very cool, and my work is ready now. I also need to adjust some camera settings. So I select the camera and in the details panel, check active the raw debug focus plane and decrease the focus distance. I want the fence to be within the camera's focus range, so I set my focus on the fence. Okay, uncheck the raw debug focus plane. As for the aperture, I should say that it's better to set the aperture value the same as the camera's aperture when filming the live action shot. As far as I remember, I filmed the shot with an aperture between 4 and 5. So I set it to 4.6 here as well. Okay, let's select the post-process volume. I think it's better to increase the exposure a bit. I change it to 1.3. Lens flare should set to 0. In the pass tracing section, reference depth of field should be enabled. I want to disable the noiser for the final export, so I uncheck that. And now I want to render and export the timeline, but without my imported solid geometries. So I select all of these solids and in the details panel type hidden. Then enable actor hidden in game. With this way, these solids will not render in the movie render queue. Also, this SKM queen should be hidden in game. So I search for the hidden and actor hidden in game. The last thing we need to set up before exporting is the color space. If we look at the live action footage, we can see that the colors and contrasts are different. It's very flat, low contrast, low saturation, and so on. Because the color space of my footage is Sony /3 gamma.cine, but Unreal Engine's color space is linear sRGB by default. So how can I match these two different color spaces? There are several ways to do this. In this tutorial, I'm gonna show you one of the fastest and easiest ways to do it. To fix this, just open your browser and click the link in the description below. Scroll down and download this OpenColor.io. After the download is complete, right-click inside your content browser, miscellaneous, and select OpenColor.io configuration. Give it a name. Double-click on that to open. Click on this, select the downloaded folder, select config OCIO file, and open. Click on this plus icon 2 times. For the first one, select the utility and select linear sRGB. For the second one, go to the input and select the color space, same of your live action footage. My live action footage is Sony /3, so I select this. Save the OpenColor.io and close this window. Now go here, OCIO display, enable display, select your OpenColor.io. First one set to linear sRGB, and for the second one, set it to Sony /3. That's it. And now the color space of our level matches the live action footage. Okay, let's back to the lit mode. I wanna open the level sequence. So I click on track scene folder, animations, I click on that to open the level sequence. Let's see the shot in the camera view. We click on this icon. Everything looks fine. I need a camera cut track. Click on add icon and select camera cut track. Then I click on this plus icon and select my camera. I increase the camera cut duration to match the timeline. Like this. Let's check the shot in pass tracing mode. Everything is fine. And now it's time to rendering and export. I go to the Window tab, Cinematic, and select Movie Render Queue. I click on this render icon and select my sequence. Then click on the config settings. I delete both of these and click on the setting. First, I select the EXR sequence. I go to the setting again and select anti-aliasing. Since we disabled the noiser, we need at least 1024 samples to get a clean rendered shot. So I set special sample count to 4 and temporal sample count to 256. Enable override anti-aliasing. Anti-aliasing method I leave it to none. I enable warm-up and render warm-up count set it to 256. In the output section, I check use custom frame rate. I set the frame rate to 25 because my sequence is 25 frames per second. I set an export location in my hard drive. In the setting, I add color output to export the scene as a select 3 color space. I check enable OCIO, then select open color IO. As you know, for the transform source, I select linear as RGB, and the transform destination, I set it to Sony select 3. Okay, let's add the path tracer. Check reference motion blur. I open the additional post-process materials, and then I check word depth, it's necessary. And also we can check motion vector. Also I add console variables, then click on the plus icon. Type r.screen percentage. This one. And set it to 150. I need another one, r.raytracing.nanite.mode. I set it to 1. I add the last one, r.pathtracing.visible lights should be 2. Everything is ready. I click on the accept, then render. Alright, I go into After Effects. Before importing the CG render shot, first we need to do keying the footage. Okay, first I make a duplicate of the main comp. I select the comp, edit and duplicate. I click on it, delete everything except the footage. Also, I delete the 3D camera tracker. Okay, let's rename the footage comp. I make 2 copies of it and name the first one keying and the second one roto brush. I start with this one. Select the pen tool and create a mask around the actor only within the green screen area. Just like this. I set the mask to none and add a keyframe to it. I adjust the mask so that during the time of the timeline, it doesn't go outside the green screen area. Okay, let's switch from none to add and turn on the roto brush comp. I select this comp, then I select the brush tool. As you can see, parts of the actor's body, like the legs and some areas of the overcoat, are not covered by the green screen. Therefore, with the brush tool, we can separate these areas from the background. First, I select the actor's leg, left foot, right foot. The space between the actor's leg is also selected. To remove the part we don't want in our selection, simply hold Alt and drag over the area. Just like this. Let's continue brush the actor. I also select the head because sometimes it goes outside the green screen area. For the head, I select the Refine Edge tool, then select only the hair. As you can see, when the head goes outside the green screen area, the brush tool still keeps it for us. Let's continue to brush. Once the brushing process is complete, you need to click freeze. I click on it. Then I need some adjusting the roto brush parameters. So I set feather to 20, contrast to 68%. I set shift edge to -6 and reduce shatter 10%. Enable the motion blur, samples per frames 16 and check out quality. Also I check the contaminate edge colors. Feather I think 10 is enough. Let's turn on the keying comp. I give it a bit of feathering to the mask. I search for the key light effect in the effects menu and apply it to the keying comp. I select green color on the screen, then switch to the screen matte. Increase the screen gain a little. decrease the white, then I change soft color to the hard color and add a little screen softness. I switch screen matte view to the intermediate result and finally add advanced speed suppressor and change standard to ultra. Copy this effect and paste it to the rotobrush comp. Now we have the actors separated from the background and we can place them into the CG shot. I import the CG rendered footage into After Effects. Before adding it to the timeline, I click on this option and go to the Color tab. Check Preserve RGB. This is very important because I rendered the shot as a slack 3 color space. I select the King comp and the rotobrush comp, then I go to the Layer menu and select Pre-Compose. I name it Character. Okay. Let's add rendered shot to the timeline. As you can see, the actor is in front of the fence, while before jumping he should be behind it and only move in front of the fence after landing. To fix this issue, I rename this one to Beauty Render, Duplicate, and name this Foreground Mask. I select that and apply extractor to that. I set the layers to board depth. Also I add a tint effect. Then increase black point and white point until only the fence and the foreground space are within the white area. Go to the layer menu, pre-comp, move all attributes, then OK. Now I change the track matte of the character comp to the FG mask. I change it to the Luma matte and then invert. And now the character is behind the fence. But after the character lands, I want him to be in front of the fence. So I'll continue the foreground mask comp up to this point and then trim it down from here. Now the character after jumping and while landing ends up in front of the fence. Okay, another thing we need to do is match the exposure. As you can see, the character is a bit brighter compared to the background. I add the curve effect and reduce the highlights and also the midtones. It's better the character's feet to land on the main live action footage, not the rendered shot. So I duplicate the raw footage, rename it to the ground mask. I bring it above everything. I select the mask tool and select this part of the ground with the mask. I need some feather. And I copy curve effects from the character comp and paste it to the ground mask because the character comp and ground mask should be the same exposure. I need to track the mask now. Right click on the mask and select track mask. And start track the mask. And now the actor's feet touch the original footage when landing. It's making the scene look more realistic. The last thing we need to fix is matching the sharpness of the raw footage with the CGI shot. The raw footage looks like blurry, but the rendered footage is sharp. In this situation, many compositors add slight blur to the rendered footage. For example, they apply a bit of fast blur to the CGI shot to reduce its sharpness. Something like this. But I'm not agree with this way. I don't want to blur the whole of the CGI shot. Instead, I prefer to clear the limitation, especially on the pixels. To do that, I delete this fast blur and search for mosaic, horizontal blocks 1700 and vertical I set it to 900. You can see before and after, like this. Okay, let's export the shot for the color grading at the DaVinci Resolve. I go to Composition, add to Render Queue. The format I set to QuickTime, format option, Apple ProRes 422 HQ. We don't need sound, I change it to off. Okay, give it the location and render. Okay, before I start the color grading, I should tell you that in this video, we will only do a basic and simple color correction. Of course, you can make it more complex and achieve better results. Okay, let's start. First, I hold Alt and S to create a serial node. For the first one, I name it Input CST. And I name the second one Output CST. I search for the color space transform, add it to the first node. Input color space Sony Escamo 3.cd. Input gamma Sony extract 3. Output color space DaVinci white gamut. Output gamma DaVinci intermediate. Also, I add another color space transform to output CST node. Input color space DaVinci white gamut. Input gamma DaVinci intermediate. Output color space Recta 709. And output gamma 2.4. Okay, let's add another node between these two nodes. And Alt P to create parallel node. Let's create another parallel node. For the first one, I name it to exposure like this. The second node can be white balance. The third one will be noise reduction. Let's delete this last one. In the exposure node, I decrease the global exposure. In the white balance node, I select this icon, and choose a white area. And for the noise reduction node, I will apply a small amount of noise reduction to the footage. You can see before and after. I create another node and name it glow. Then right click on the node, add matte, then I select the shot. And then I search for the glow, add it to the node, and change composite mode to the soft light. Then I decrease the shine threshold like this, and also change some other parameters to get best result. I can also increase the amount of the background fog. To do that, I create another node and name it BG fog, like this. I search for depth map, this one, and apply it to the node. Let's invert the effect. I enable adjust map level. I adjust the parameters until I'm sure that the areas where the fog is going to be added fall within the white range. I turn off the map preview. And now I can add fog just on the background. Look this. Before and after. Okay, once the color and lighting adjustments are done, it's time to create the look for the shot. To do that, I create a node after output CST node. Let's turn off BG fog node for now to speed up workflow. Okay, this I name it LUT. Then right click on that, I select this codec LUT. This effect is too strong, I want to reduce it. I go into this section and decrease the key output gain. Let's create another node. I name it Shadow Tint. And inside the HDRI tab, decrease the low range. Then I add just a little magenta to the shadows. As you can see, the shadows were too green and now it's look more natural. Let's add another node. I search for the Answer Pro and add it to the node. Scroll down. I set quality to high, then disable all tools. First, I enable the grain and increase the amount. It's look good now. Other thing we can add to the shot is halation. It's too much, so I decrease amplify to 13. You can see before and after. Before the export, I turn the background fog node back on and go to the deliver page, give it a name. I set format to MP4, codec H.264. Bitrate I set to 10,000. Add to the render queue, then render. And this is the final shot.